Why haven't you killed me yet?
Well, the cabby's in LA. I get back. Sigmund Freud meets Dr. Ruth.
Answer the question.
Look in the mirror. Paper towels, clean cab, limo company someday. How much you got saved?
That ain't none of your business.
Someday my dream will come. One night you'll wake up and you'll discover it never happened. It's all turned around on you. It never will. Suddenly you are old. Didn't happen. And it never will because you were never going to do it anyway. You're pushing into memory, then zone out in your Barco lounger, being hypnotized by daytime TV for the rest of your life. So don't you talk to me about murder. All it ever took was a down payment on a Lincoln Town car. That girl, you can't even call that girl. What the fuck are you still doing driving a cab?
Podcast, got to put a show on. Yeah, I haven't had a taupe in a while, but I have a Perrier because I was way out west and got to drive by the French bakery and get something, which I have in my bag for the drive home.
Little snack. All right.
It's a pudding knot.
We don't have to put on a show. Actually, we might address that at some point. How I feel.
This isn't
about
a show. It's just two people, what they would talk about if they were at a coffee shop. And then we just record it.
Cut it.
With 3 flip cameras and some microphones.
So I tried to go the total opposite of what I wore in the last episode.
Right. The suit. And now we've got
T-shirt, gym shorts.
Sunday afternoon, not knowing what you're going to do today.
Sunday morning coming down. That's a good.
Yeah. I like it. I like it all. I'm stoked for my grandpa's watch to arrive in October.
When we hit
I hope I like it so much.
at a certain
I don't
sub
wear an
level,
Apple Watch
at a
anymore.
certain sub level, I'm buying you a watch.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Wow.
You don't know what that is either.
Whoa.
I haven't thought about it,
It better match.
but I will gift it to
the
you.
camper plate and the Goodfellas soundtrack as far as gift quality goes.
I don't know if it will. It's hard to do that.
Those are pretty top notch.
That's top of the line.
Pretty top notch.
All right, this is good. I feel like we're both in kind of a goofy mood, keeping it light.
Well, I'm gonna bring the heavy with this, buddy boy.
I don't know how I feel about that, but let's get into it. I don't know what we're talking about today. Matt knows what we're talking about. We don't have a tripod.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the sunrise.
We don't have a tripod.
Yeah.
One of the cameras is questionable.
Right. But we got a new one,
We did get a new one.
dead stock, new in box, never opened.
If anybody wants to send us their old flip cams,
As long as it's this specific model,
which we
I'll-
can't. No, we
Yeah,
can't
no.
dox it. Never mind.
we can't tell everybody what the specific model is.
Scratch
Although
that.
I think I posted it.
Go delete
somewhere.
that immediately.
I'll redact that portion that
We'll
says why
redact
this is the best flip camera out
prior
there.
to just black it out. Yeah.
So
Should we do life updates? Should we do reading updates?
should we do like a little fun,
What do we think?
like a little fun, quick thing here before we get into the heavy stuff?
So it's been like,
or
been
is this
2
going to
weeks.
mess up our retention, Alex? If we don't talk about the topic right away, is it going to mess up our retention?
maybe that's a reason for not talking about.
Maybe we don't give a shit.
Maybe we do. Maybe we're just parading that we don't.
The retention. Well, hey, we're we've got a lot of new subscribers, and we've got to make sure that
we're kind of the big, we're the largest
Right.
podcast
so we have to take what
on
works
this channel.
and we got to double down on it, and we've got to continue to not just do what naturally grows the channel, and start getting strategic.
It is nice having just kind of done whatever we feel like, and the channels continue to grow.
It's nice to not care.
It's a nice feeling.
I mean, we care.
The minute we start caring is the minute that we probably stop making podcasts.
Right.
So there's probably some people that are like, that'd be a good day, but
Right.
we enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
So I think we got to maintain an air of not caring.
Yeah.
Because once you start to care, there's like things you have to do. There's expectations, there's processes, there's just a lot of stuff that I really think.
You start going, well, we did this thing the last time and that worked, so we got to kind of do that again. It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
So, like, just to clarify, we care about doing this.
We care.
We care about doing this, but we don't care about going, oh, hey, that video, that one got 1.6K views and we gained 25 subs. So what about that did it? Let's just keep doing that.
We get pumped when it does well, too.
Oh, yeah.
But
probably because we, on that side of things, don't care.
Yeah,
like,
it's look, no matter where you are in life, and if you say this isn't the case, then you're probably lying to yourself.
Yeah.
You care when whatever you're doing is resonating with another human.
Yes.
I think that's just how we're wired.
Yep.
And it's reassuring to kind of take a left turn when the typical intuition might be to take a right turn and to still get where you're going. Yeah. I think that's satisfying in its own way. So Matt's written out a lot. Should we? Okay.
Well, do you want to do some fun stuff? Let's just do some fun stuff first.
What are you reading? What are you into recently? What are you consuming?
So I'm like still in my come down out of the upheaval, right? Mm-hmm. So I showed you a picture of the studio. I posted that to my social media, Instagram stories, all that stuff. I am like so consumed right now with basically, like, I think what's happened is we talked about this last episode, this whole year plus from street photography and old cameras and film photography and all that stuff, creating this explosion of my world, blowing things up and collecting VHS and getting into vintage stereo equipment. And my studio right now is getting torn apart. I built this whole big shelving system so I can put my typewriters and my VHS and my stereo system and all that, and to basically overhaul the entire back studio to go from being one part live streaming space, another part basically just storage of equipment. I was thinking about this when I was overhauling my space. I won't spend too much time on this, but it's like, Pelican cases with camera equipment and lighting and all that stuff. Like, this stuff all symbolizes to me a time in my life where I waited to get permission to work. And this stuff was all ready to go to be thrown into my truck so that when a company or a client said, okay, yeah, we will hire you for this, I could throw all that stuff in my truck and go do work for somebody else to help them achieve whatever greatness that they're aspiring to with their business or whatever. And that thought dawned on me as I kind of took everything off this shelf, and I'm replacing it with stuff that's for me, that's like ultimately going to serve the inspiration I have for the videos I make for my YouTube channel, this channel, photography, all the art and work and all the stuff that I'm doing. Even just stuff like typewriter, not repair, but cleaning up old typewriters that I'm going to use, but I incorporate into my channel, all this stuff. So the space is being really turned into less of a storage room and more of a studio for me to make stuff. Mm-hmm. And I have the main part of my studio where I can watch stuff, I can work on my computer in the command center, but now this is even more. I can still live stream, which it was doing before, but so it's really exciting. I'm not really reading anything right now because I'm in this come down from this state from kind of blowing up everything in the back studio and getting it all rebalanced. So to wrap up, I have quite a bit left to do to achieve the vision I have in my mind for the space. And then once I do, and all that is organized and streamlined and ready for me to do what I'm doing, then reading and other stuff will start coming back in. I mean, I'm like ignoring text messages that people have sent me with recommendations for this or that.
Yeah.
I'm like
all consumed.
Yeah, completely all consumed.
Yeah. It's a good time for it too. Like, I think this season is a good time to just unplug, kind of do your own thing.
And we'll get into this, but this is sort of, to me, this typewritten note is a symbol of the type of stuff I'm taking from a thought into a tangible form that then might end up being
what is this
in the work. Yeah, so these are like vintage.
This is sick. This
type.
It's a book,
like a tear off. It's like a memo pad, but it's like a tear off piece of paper.
That's cool.
And it's got like this vintage look. So I prefer this to just like boring white copy paper from Office Max. Yeah, that shit's lame right there, bro. Come on. Everything.
Are you kidding me? This is imagination. This is creativity at work.
Something about this old paper.
This is the best. These two things are the best things in the world.
And that's part of all this crap I'm consuming. There's something about an old paper, old typewriter. It makes me want to take what I'm thinking and translate it into a tangible form. Whereas when I sit and think about this stuff and think about going onto a MacBook Pro and typing it up into Pages, it's just boring to me.
Yeah.
But this excites me, so I just type this up. Stream of consciousness. We'll get into this. But you asked what I was reading. What are you reading, Alex?
What am I reading? So read a lot in the last couple of weeks. Just been on like different vacations and stuff like that.
Consuming a lot of written stuff.
Yeah, and I mean I'm working on things too.
Also called books.
A lot of exciting things kind of in the works. I feel like many exciting projects. Oh,
is that going to help? Is that little buddy?
It's great. Well, one of the things that I'm trying to do more of is I'm trying to get back into writing like long form essays.
Yeah.
Not for anything. Not like not like it with that intent. Like literally as a practice of journaling.
Yeah.
So I miss the analytical process that goes into writing an essay.
Yeah.
About a random topic. So you come across something in a book and you can really passively consume that information, take it and just kind of, okay, that's great, and then put it out.
Right.
Sometimes you write it down on like a bookmark or something and it stays around, but I really want to start, playing with ideas a little more and, molding them and seeing what comes from that. I think essays are a great tool for that. I'm not talking about like 10-page essays. I'm talking about like 3 pages, whatever, just enough to challenge your preconceived notions for a particular idea, to see where you should go next in terms of exploring that. Is there more here than I initially thought? Is there less here than I initially thought? That kind of thing. Also becoming more, having more clarity in my thinking, my thought process. I feel like my thoughts have been a little jumbled,
disjointed,
and part of that's just from taking so much in.
Yeah,
and I have a pretty high threshold for how much. Like, I mean, I think how much I constantly consume. Pretty,
buddy, big old sponge over here.
Pretty high threshold for that, and I mean, I'm just kind of jumbled.
Yeah,
with stuff, and I don't hate that, but I think writing ideas out might be better. And yeah, I bought this stupid old typewriter. It's an electric typewriter. Mainly
Royal
just
Signet 10.
Yeah, Royal Signet 10.
My first ultra portable non-electric is a Royal Signet. It's
so this thing is a monster, but I like having it just always on. I've got at this point 3 typewriters, and one of them stays up. I just bought it because it was unbelievable. It's American made, like World War II era, and they actually had to cease production to
help the war effort.
The war effort. So just a lot of history. And then I have the Olympia SM9.
SM9.
And that's great. It's like a Mercedes. It's just really well made, and Germans do it right.
And it's just in great condition.
Great condition. I mean, it's perfect condition essentially. And then the Signet picked it up this week, and I've just been using that to write things out. So I can write things out on a computer, but I have found that I'm too prone to be distracted when I'm on a computer. And I just, some things that work better on a computer.
Yep.
Computer's great for long distance collaboration and for a lot of things. But I think there's a good synthesis point that a lot of people miss between analog and digital. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
But what I'm reading, not a ridiculous amount right now. I started the USA trilogy by John Dos Passos and what else? Just various other things.
Yeah.
Went to a Tennessee Williams museum recently, which was cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite, I guess, playwrights.
Yep.
Writers, maybe.
Yeah.
So that was cool. Picked up a couple of old things and working on some stuff around there.
I like old things.
What else? Been watching. I've just had Looney Tunes on in the background in the studio for like a week on mute.
I watched that stuff as a kid.
It's just really visually interesting. Art style is really cool.
Yeah. It looks beautiful on that monitor.
Yeah, it looks just really good colors, and that's been pretty inspiring.
It's on right now, everybody.
Yeah,
just
I'm
for
actually
those listening. And
anytime
those
that I'm
watching,
caught staring off, I'm just getting distracted. What else? That's all that's coming to mind. There's other stuff.
Yeah,
but
sure.
whatever.
We don't need to spend a ton of time on it. That's a good rundown.
Good summary.
You were in Miami.
I was in Miami.
Yeah.
You're in San Diego recently.
Yeah, he's got some nice travel going on.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about those trips yet, but we don't.
Every time we get back to Omaha, it gets hot. It's like great while we're away, and then it gets hot when we get back.
For those listening and watching, we had a little one of the 9 seasons of the Midwest. We had a little false fall this past week or so, like a little gloomier, a little cooler, and now today's high is 98 degrees. Tomorrow's 100, at least what I saw yesterday. So we're in a little mini heat wave here, and we're just kind of August 25th. Sorry, dated the podcast episode
it's not
filming,
that.
but
It's not that date.
It'll be
Dog days of summer.
This is the middle of September, so anyway, there's just a sense of ready to be embracing cooler temps.
I think Matt and I share this, where fall is probably one of our favorite seasons.
Top.
So
favorite. October is the best month of the year.
Going to be a
hands
good
down.
next couple of months.
Yeah.
I think the energy will be high.
Yeah, a lot of
We tend to hang out more in the winter too. I feel like, because in the summer we're constantly just battling with you're out of town, I'm out of town, you've got the kids out of school.
That's right. Yep.
There's just always something going on.
A little trickier.
Yeah.
Or it's just hot. And it's like, you guys want to go take pictures? Like, it's hot out.
Yeah.
At least when it's cold
now,
out.
I do think we don't work as much in the winter. Fall and spring are typically
I probably do more like personal work, although my content creation and the stuff that I'm doing that I put out there, that's ramped up significantly because my kids are in school. I have much more time to focus on that, and as soon as I get this damn studio done, then I won't be preoccupied with the overhaul. I'll be able to just have that space all ready to go so I can get back to the work.
Yeah.
A
lot of cool stuff coming up, though.
Definitely.
I feel like I'm pretty optimistic about.
Yeah. I think I'm going to write a couple of articles for my Medium. I haven't written anything in a little while, but having these experiences going to estate sales and doing like vinyl record hunting, I want to, and doing a little bit of eBay reselling, I want to almost try to write an article that's like, I was eBay reselling for a year, and I don't know what the dramatic title is, if I'll even go that route, but it's just sort of like, this is what I think about reselling stuff on eBay after doing it for a year. What that emotional experience is like, whether it's kind of scammy, how it preys on my weaknesses of
slot machine,
retail therapy, and the sort of like, that slot machine. There's a jackpot right around the next corner, and like what the definition of a jackpot is. Like, oh my God, I just found a $18 record for $1. Oh my God, it's like it's $17, man. Like, Anyway, so
no.
I think I'm going to try to work on some more writing in that area. And I'm hoping to use a dumb computer to do that writing. That's another little project.
Just get yourself an electronic typewriter.
Well, I do want it to be stored digitally so I can more easily get it on the computer.
Have you seen the electronic, like the full electronic
Oh,
typewriters?
yeah. I used to have one.
You can cloud. No. Like these are new.
Oh,
Like last 5 years or so.
Oh, yeah,
There's a brand that does it. I mean, they're just typewriters, little e-ink screen or whatever.
Oh, sure.
And it just saves directly to the cloud, and then you can pull it up in it's just a text document. They're not even that bad. They're like $500, which it's. I mean, but with how much equipment you buy, you go through that, and
of course. But I get 10 things versus one.
Right, but I mean, depends on how much you. They're cool though. I'll show you one after the show. Anyways,
Perfect.
What do you got?
Well, I might read this because this is just my. So part of why I would read this is because it's a good way for you and anybody listening or watching to, especially if you've listened to a lot of these episodes, like this is sort of a byproduct of all what looks like on the surface, the craziness in my life with getting this stuff. This is what results.
One thing I just want
from
to step in and comment.
Mania.
There's so much introspection.
Yeah.
That like honestly, I highly respect the amount of introspection that, because you can learn so much out of just.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people would go through this process, and you're almost a vector for this force that's pushing you through the process. And you're sitting here though, you're thinking through it. Why am I doing this? How is this affecting me? What is the externalization?
Yeah.
Like, what's the core of this? What's the internalization of this external action? A lot of people, don't really go through that process. So I commend that.
I mean,
and it's fun to see and listen to it from an outside perspective. And I've learned stuff from it too.
Well, and I mean, I look at these behaviors and I see the physical externalization, again, the chaos of my space. Somebody coming in there and going, "Whoa."
Yeah, the picture. We should put the picture.
Yeah,
or something.
Right. Yeah, I'll send it to you. Going like, holy, or why are you going to all this stuff? Like, why are you going to these stages? Why are you getting these typewriters? Like, why are you doing all this stuff? It makes no sense to someone on the outside. And part of me goes, why are you feeling this way? Why are you motivated to do this? Why are you setting other things aside to make time for this? And that's where that introspection, self-awareness comes with me. Is my curiosity, not only in other people and their lives and why they do this or why do that, I ask that about myself, to the point where even something like this, I go, how can I trace some of these behaviors, compulsions, whatever, back genetically? Like, where does this come from in my my ancestry, from my dad or whatever, or my grandpa? I mean, I went through my grandma's house after she passed away, and I was always drawn to my grandpa's studio, and it's a reflection of what I do. It's custom cabinetry, little dials, having speakers wired throughout the house. I mean, all the detail work my grandpa did to build out all these tools to help him make stuff, media, photos, 8mm home movies, digitizing home movies, doing weird stuff with cheap photo editing software to digitally remove somebody or cut them out and add them to this. All this stuff he was messing around with. And there's so much correlation between what he was into, his shop in the basement, fixing lawnmowers, fixing electronics. There's so much connection there between him and me, and then also my dad and I wrote this thing. But again, I don't know that I would have written this out had we not done this podcast, had I not gotten into typewriters, had I not felt like something was missing in me taking a thought that I have, why do you do that? And then making something to explore it further. And then to have typed this up, to bring it here for us to talk about, and potentially anybody listening or watching to comment about, to have this conversation amongst all of us about it. All right, so I'm just going to read this. Yeah. Is that okay? It's going to take a minute. But
no. Should we time it?
Yeah, for those listening, I've got two small pieces of paper that have a bunch of typing on them, and people watching, two pieces of paper. So I just titled this Studio Sessions because I had the thought this could be something we talk about. All right. So my dad wrote a bunch of stories, but I'm terrified to read them. Why? I've had them for years and I've only looked them over, getting a cursory understanding of what they're about. What does my dad ending his pursuit of a writing career in his 20s mean about me? Am I repeating him? Am I the continuation of that legacy? Is, quote, failure genetic? Laziness, an unwillingness to work hard and sacrifice to achieve something profound? Or is it just a fantasy and you're actually not a writer or an artist? Compulsion, obsession, fixation. Ultimately, you'd rather just keep your days easy and consume the work of others and live in this fantasy world that you're capable of greatness, but outside forces prevent you from committing to that pursuit. It's not you, it's them. The relativity of, quote, hard work. You're a passionate hobbyist and experimenter and explorer, but you want to keep things comfortable and easy, so you get a job at the post office and you punch the clock and you get your pension, and on nights and weekends you tinker and play and make stuff, and you join a Facebook group and you post some stories on Instagram and you show people what you like and what you've consumed and what you're interested in, and you just do that. You're a collector and a consumer and a dreamer, but you're not a doer. You're not competitive. You don't think about something great. Well, you don't seriously think about it. You dream about being perceived of as great, but you're not actually willing to work hard and sacrifice to achieve greatness in your work. There isn't an obsession or fixation or compulsion to be great. So while you are ambitious, these missing ingredients prevent you from converting that ambition into making something that people consume, love, and share over and over across the decades. So what do you do when you know this about yourself? Do you submit and surrender to that reality, or do you reject it and give yourself to the potential delusion that putting in the work alone will get you where you want to go, or to an approximation of it? Sure, you're not Michael Jordan, but does that mean you can't have a meaningful life playing semi-pro basketball or pickup games at the park or coaching? If you know your limits, can you achieve some kind of greatness within that? Is it great to just pursue it anyway, regardless? Do what you can do, but do it great, even if it's not going to get you to the, quote, top. What do you do when a fantasy you had for a big part of your life is met with the crushing reality that you simply don't have the right mix of talent, drive, ambition, competitiveness, obsession, and a very specific vision for greatness that makes it easy to put everything in a secondary position to your pursuit? That's what I barfed out the other day when I thought about my dad's collection of short stories and things that he wrote that I actually tried to find. I didn't bring the tripod or the flip camera, but I took 5 seconds to think about, where did I put all that stuff? And I think I put it somewhere that I wouldn't remember where it was because I'm afraid of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, can I ask you to define, what does greatness mean to you?
I think the first thought you have when you think of greatness, and I think of an interview that I listened to with Bruce Springsteen and how like he wanted to make something great. I think about a conversation I remember hearing, or an interview with Alex Soth, the photographer, and he just knew at a young age he wanted to make great work. I think about someone like Steven Spielberg, who seemed to have ambition and aspirations for greatness, even if he never maybe said, I want to make great work. You think about people that, at least I do, sort of reach the summit of that category of a thing: filmmaking, photography, music. That if some people had to pick like who would be on the Mount Rushmore of that thing, Spielberg up there with movies, Alex Soth with photography, Bruce Springsteen with music. In my mind, I'm sort of plagued with thinking that greatness equates to, making work that puts you into the mind of everybody who thinks of the category of the thing that you make. Again, music, photography, film.
It's interesting though, because seeing that as a young person
who might be kind of like got back to that moment where I watched my buddy or the one kid in the school play. I can do that. Seeing that as a young person and maybe not fantasizing, or thinking about what life would be like if you were in that position. Does that kind of create this perception of what that is and where you relate to it every step of, every day of your life? Yeah. And I talked about the relativity of hard work, but what about the relativity of greatness, which, I think of when you ask, well, what is your definition of greatness? So yeah, that's the answer that I can come up with.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times, especially in like American culture, Western culture, and there's positives and negatives to this, but I do think there's a lot of negatives. I think the positives start to kick in once you've established kind of a literacy for the form that you're working within.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the negatives, I'm not saying you haven't established a literacy in some of the things you talked about, but I do think that, pursuing any kind of and this is just my opinion. I just want to lay that out, and I'll get into a point of that also with what you said, but we tend to, in America, we tend to view things on this scale of like not good and great. And some of the examples you laid out, Steven Spielberg and Alex Soth and Bruce Springsteen, like, I think, even that is such a highly subjective group of people. Like, you and I agree on a lot of things, and I wouldn't put, I have respect for all three of those people's work. I wouldn't put any of them on, my personal whatever, Mount Rushmore, whatever you want to call it. And I typically think it's not a useful exercise to come up with a Mount Rushmore. And it always kind of makes me just like, it makes me feel a little strange inside when I hear people, this person's the greatest of all time, or this person's the GOAT. Yeah. This is the best to ever do it. I think you can strive towards excellence in craft. But I think for any artistic pursuit, the pursuit shouldn't be this perceived greatness that's more of a mimicry of somebody who you idolize.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be this vertical line that you're trying to get to the top of, because that's all, it's just iconography at the end of the day, where it's something where this, it's easier for us to say this person is the greatest and everybody else falls below that, or that's a very commercially viable idea. Yeah. But I think when you get into it, there's so many, you could be unheard of. And if you're making some kind of art that is unique to you and that is self-realized, I guess, and it's not copying somebody else, then I think that's quote unquote great work. Like, you've achieved something that very few people have achieved. Yeah. There are certain things where it is easier to measure quote unquote greatness, like the fastest man alive. Like, Usain Bolt is the fastest man to ever run that race, so he's therefore the greatest. I don't think that translates to art, though. No. In my opinion. And I think a lot of people like to think it does. And a lot of things in the world will tell you that it does, because it's very commercially appealing to do that. Yeah. And I think that's almost a trap that people get caught in. Sure. And it can stop somebody like you from just doing it. Just like, oh, I love this. And you kind of already are. Like, this is an example of you kind of exploring something that's unique to you. Your space is a project that you're working on right now that is an art project. Your grandfather's studio was his representation of, his work in a lot of ways. And I don't think, while you might not think that's Spielbergian or whatever,
Yeah.
it's its own little form of, I guess, greatness. But I think there's, in America, it's really useful to have, hard work equals success equals greatness. And while I think, if you're doing something that you love, if you want to make films and you've discovered, you've just kept going and kept going, and you've worked and you've discovered your own pocket, your own vision of the world, and you're, constantly exploring, how can I express that better? How do I see things? How can I get that down? How can I put that into the world?
Yeah.
It does take hard work.
Yep.
It is very, very much it's a difficult process. As with photography, music, anything that you strive to do. But it's not like that, it's not as much of a hunker down and do the hard work and you can be the I just don't think that's a very useful framework. Like get underneath, get into the weeds, get into the hard work, and just keep going. And you can. It's useful in some things, but it's not useful in others. And I think art is. I know I'm just circling around.
No, yeah.
Because this is something that's I'm trying to put into words
Sure.
right now.
Yeah, I just dumped this on you, and yeah.
But yeah, I tend to think that because I used to see a lot of the world in terms of like greatness and I think there's, excellence in execution, and there's, keeping a tight ship, and there's executing at a high level, and, being open, and there's like factors that can go into creating great work. And some of those things have to be present to create, work that is truly yours. But I think it's too much of a reductive framework to just say like, oh, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to achieve greatness.
I don't think
and I think it's not useful.
No.
I think it's very, because, you're looking at your dad's experience, not writing past his 20s as a failure.
I'm wondering if it's
a failure. And I think like you're looking at that through the perspective of your kind of, internal,
right,
I guess, conflict with your own writing.
Well, and again, like when someone like Bruce Springsteen says like, I just want, to make great work, right? He's not thinking about fame and fortune. He's not thinking about some fantasy life. He's not thinking about anything ego. He's thinking about how do I take how I feel and what I think and the music I hear in my mind, and how do I like craft something that is, and he probably doesn't think about it like that, but I think he's like uncompromising. Like I'm not I'm not going to hang this up right now because it's not right. It's not there. And that doesn't mean that you don't have a moment where you call a song good and you still think, well, we could have done this, or I wonder if we would have tried that. You're always going to maybe second guess whether it was truly done or not. But there's something in these people that I am talking about where I'm not necessarily talking about the life that they have as a result of making great work. I'm talking about their tenacity. And that's not to say that they never struggled, or maybe there was a moment where Bruce or Alex was like, I want to be done today and I just want to watch some TV or something like that. But there's just something where they're just sort of relentless in improving and doing more, and nothing is going to stop them.
Well, there's like a clarity that some people have.
Yeah.
And I think some people, I don't think it's, and that's the problem with like trying to mimic these people that you hold high regard for is some of them just see things like they're not interested in doing anything other than that one thing, which is it attributes the level of, literacy that they are able to achieve with their medium or their art form. But also I think just an important note to make of what you just said is like his definition of greatness isn't the same as yours. When he's saying like, I want to make something great, and it's really easy to conflate the two and be like, he's talking about greatness and this is how I look at greatness, and that's the same. But, I would wager most of these people, they have their own definition
their
of
own
greatness.
understanding. Absolutely.
If they're being interviewed and it's just like a public, like they're probably not pushing harder to be like, what is your understanding of that word?
Right.
Just so people that are listening. And so it's very easy to just be like, oh, he means greatness. And greatness is like being the best. And like, I think a lot of those guys at the top of their art forms or who have achieved a level of like fluency and mastery of like whatever that is, they're not, again, their greatness is, wow, I was able to get such a clear, inside out, like understanding of, how I see the world.
Yeah.
And how can I achieve that again?
Right.
What is the level of technique that I have to employ to achieve something close to that again?
Yeah.
But it's easy to just be like, to kind of reduce it down into, grind, great.
Well, I think that this is an echo or a connection to technopoly and the technologicalification of technologyification of our humanity.
Seeing the world through a very specific.
Well, I sit here and I go,
framework.
So it's like part of my thinking is, and I have the section where I talk about these ingredients, like these ingredients of what it was that allows these people to achieve greatness. Where do I say it? This isn't very long, and I'm having to. There isn't an obsession or fixation or compulsion to be great. So while you're ambitious, these missing ingredients prevent you from converting that ambition into making something that people consume, love, and share. Yeah. It's almost like, again, wanting an external force. Like, oh, well, your genetic makeup doesn't predispose you to intense competitiveness or grandiose ambitions or whatever. Like I almost want to take those people, part of me, that might be frustrated or wondering why I'm different. Obviously we're all different, and we can sit here and say, well, Michael Jordan was super competitive, Alex Soth was this, or Bruce Springsteen was this. But like part of my brain wants to take this social science technology and try to break these people down into these ingredients that created this alchemy that led to whatever it was that made them make great music, great photographs, great films, whatever. And again, my definition of great is not fame and fortune, but sort of like, a lot of people really being drawn to the work and connecting with them and meaning something to them, and maybe their pride in the discipline and the attention to craft and the mastery of craft and all that they dispatched onto the project. And so it's not necessarily like, why do I suck, or why am I not great, or why am I not? It's more like a fascination with what it is within us that creates the foundation for that to happen. Now, I'll wrap up my point. Part of my brain wants to like find the genetic markers that made that happen, but then
do you think there are like
no? Well, this is the thing. This is all me thinking out loud. It's me wondering. Right. It's me wondering, can we be reduced to that? And because my dad didn't pursue writing beyond his 20s, and I never got to talk to him about it. I don't know if he was just like it was a fantasy for him, if like the reality of having a daughter made him feel at peace with not pursuing it anymore, even though he, like you hear stories about people that let go of something, but they still do it. They still write every night, or they write every day, or they have novels in the drawer that they just never shared with anybody, and it's discovered at the end of their life or whatever. But that makes me wonder, like, is there a connection with him having similarities in his pursuit of the arts and writing and all that with mine? But then on the other side, the person, the version of me that is not the version, but the part of me that's a little bit more spiritual and metaphysical and all that goes, this is not stuff that you can put in a beaker and like see what the molecular breakdown is. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It's magic, or whatever the word
I
is.
think it's just the world is very chaotic.
Yeah,
it's hard
absolutely.
And again, this is just one worldview, and anybody can have their own. But every day you have the choice to do something or not do something.
Yeah.
And you're making that choice. And I don't think it's really predestined. You can change your space, you can change your habits, you can change your lifestyle, and it's just kind of up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a large group of people that don't want to agree with that, and you don't have to. But I think there's a number of worldviews that you can hold, an infinite number of them.
Yeah.
And my outlook on it is find the ones that are most, they give you the most opportunity, or opportunity is a poor word choice, but they give you the most potential outcomes, or highest number of potential outcomes, or highest number of potential
probability for
positive
success,
outcomes,
or
which is a very mathematic way of looking
Right.
at it. But yeah, and then just, seek those, apply those worldviews, and, just operate through those worldviews. And, there's situations and things like that where it's like, well, you can't just change your worldview. You can't just do this. And,
right.
I just happen to have a more malleable view of things. But yeah, I there's obviously genetic predispositions, especially in physics, but I do think that's kind of a conceit of trying to take that physical, that like sports metaphor, and apply it to art. And I don't think it's a metaphor that kind of fits.
I know,
but it's clunky. It doesn't quite like there's some edges that are peeking out, and it doesn't click in, and it just looks a little off.
Yeah.
I don't think the metaphor quite fits as well as people like to think it does. But everything's commercialized, and I think you've seen, especially in the past 2 decades, you've seen that metaphor get essentially just shoved down your,
Well, I think it's everything from, sports is gamification, right? You have measurements like the fastest runner, the fastest swimmer.
It's a gamification, and you can't really gamify something that's, subjective.
But you do get a little bit of, in sports, you get a little bit, because, I think there is artistry, obviously, in what these athletes do. And you do get from a number of different people that have, been sports fans their whole lives, where if they had to pick the 5 best football players or basketball players, their 5 might have some overlap, but it might be different than the others. And it could be like, these are the 5 that scored the most points in the NBA. Points, like the top scorer to the lowest scorer. Yeah, but they're not the best. Like that guy who hit baseball now, all those home runs, also had the most strikeouts. Or like the way they played the game. Like some people might rank the top 5 not necessarily based on stats, but sort of like
people get so caught up in that though, and it's just like you said, it is game, and it's easy, but it's not useful. There's no utility there. It's honestly, I almost think it's a complete waste of time. Sure. And it's easy, maybe for a lot of people too, it's easier to like go and rank and do your rankings and we like it, and it makes, we love putting the world into these easier to understand boxes. But it's just completely not useful, and you can spend the time doing better things. And yeah, it's like, I mean, it's like the National Enquirer. It's really seductive, and like at a primal level, it's fun to do, but it's not. It's like eating junk food. Right. You're eating junk food at the end of the day. And I think it's better just to go out and be like, okay, I like films. Why do I like films? What do I like about it? Yeah. And, I like this person's writing, or I like this person's photography. What do I like about it? And instead of just, starting from, okay, what did this person do to become successful? How can I follow what they did to become, instead just be like, what do I like about their work? Yeah. Do I like their work? Yeah. Do I just like their work because other people like their work? Like if you can answer that question on all the things you quote unquote like or love or enjoy, you're going to learn a lot more. It's the introspection. You're going to learn a lot more about yourself and the world, the outside world, than you would by just, some arbitrary ranking of greatness and I don't know. This is just such an interesting, it does frustrate me more and more when people kind of use that greatness thing, because I think it prevents them from just do it, just do the thing, just start operating. And also with the example of your dad, and we talked about this a little bit on the phone, but like, did he find more satisfaction in something else? There's definitely people who give something up that they love because they just couldn't, and then there's always a part of them that feels a little broken, that they're not pursuing that thing. That's a different discussion, but a lot of people say they want to do one thing, and they're sourcing that off of it is a mimetic reaction. They're they see something and they want to be that thing. You see all of everybody goes to film school. What do they want to do? They want to write and direct. Right. And then a lot of people, some people really do want to write and direct. Yeah. And there is a clarity. And I again, I'm just using the film thing because it's familiar. Right. But some people get way more joy off of, building the photography or set design or acting, or some people are like, film is actually not for me at all. It's all a self-discovery process. And the more, man, this ties in well, but the more you can do what you're doing, like be introspective and build your life to reflect you and not what you think should be, the quicker you're going to discover what it is you actually care most about. And then don't focus on anything other than just your best version of that thing, your own definition of whatever, doing it at a high level is. And you're going to get a lot further, I think, than just looking at the external world of like, I want to be great, serving that ego, and I want to be great. What are other people, like who out there is said to be great? Okay, I like that person because I'm not saying you're doing this either. I'm just saying. But I want to be a great filmmaker, and then who's the most successful filmmakers right now? And then you look at like, I don't know, like Christopher Nolan. His films make a lot of money. They're, they have a certain artistic style to them or whatever. I want to be that, and then you copy that, or Tarantino, or whatever the the popular culture filmmaker is of the time, and then you absolutely just try to copy that because that person's great, that person's doing what I think I want to do, and you go all in on that, and you're just creating a facsimile of that person's work, right? And you actually don't care. Like there is no internal. It's just you're going completely off of external forces, and you don't even, in some cases, care about the thing that you're doing. And then when their path doesn't work for you, you're like, well, I failed. Right. And then you give it up, or it's like maybe you didn't fail, but you just tried to create, like a copycat version of something that you didn't truly care about or understand in the first place. And yeah, you failed at that. But then, you're just telling yourself you're not good enough to do the work. And
yeah, and I want to...
I don't know how much of that made sense.
No, it makes absolute
sense.
And I think, and I want to clarify too, I think, what some of this means and sort of where it comes from too. I didn't write this because I was sitting there going, these are the people that I think are great and have done great work, and I deserve. I think I deserve, or I should be amongst them.
Yeah.
In my particular discipline or whatever, which I, all over the place. Or, I'm a YouTuber, but my other Final Cut YouTuber friends have more subscribers than me, and I deserve to be considered like the great YouTuber of my category of YouTube videos or street photography or whatever it is I do. I don't sit there and go, I should be great too. Why am I not?
Yeah. I
go, what is it that separates someone in my position, which is not like, oh, this shitty guy in the middle Iowa, like, oh, this average person. But I do sit there and go, like, what is the difference between someone that thinks about making great work and the people that actually do? It is almost like an objective question versus why am I not where they are?
Well,
it's
I'm
just
not.
What does separate us?
What I was saying wasn't putting, because and I almost think that, I use it as an example, like the introspection you're doing and the work that you're doing in your space and with your life in general, and just the willingness to adapt and change is putting you in a direction towards a personal success that I think would rival the personal success. Professional success, that's kind of just an open game. Like maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. I don't think that's a good measure to pull from. But I do think that I want to just sit a little bit more and kind of think it up. But it's so
the other element of this too is, I think the thing that I don't necessarily ruminate about where something like this comes up, it's not, why isn't the work I'm doing, because I also know that the work I'm doing is not. I basically sit there and go, with everything that I've made, whether it's a YouTube video or the studio overhaul, I can feel myself being impatient or wanting this part of it to be done, or like, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And part of this comes from, I don't know that Bruce Springsteen ever went, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's good enough.
Well, I think, though, this is so weird that we're having this conversation right now, because last night, Audrey and I went to see Collateral.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Which, we've seen it before, but was in theaters, and a friend of ours was, doing the programming. And this is literally Collateral. And the reaction to what you're just saying is like, is the line? I think there's a simple way to look at it where, and I don't want to oversimplify, but where is it just like thinking and doing?
Yeah.
Like, you said, what's the difference between these people who are doing and me who's thinking about it? And it's like, that's the difference.
Right.
There's great Tom Cruise quote in that movie where he's like, you're going to sit here, and think about this for the next 20 years when the only, difference between, you here and you there is a down payment on a Lincoln Town Car and, picking up the phone and calling that. Mm-hmm. It's like, you can sit here and just think and think and think and go through all the scenarios and tell yourself, oh, I'm being strategic, or, oh, I'm making sure that everything is aligned.
Yeah.
But you know, the difference between you and that person in your head is, you know, the down payment on a Lincoln Town Car. It's just very simple of, you know, we can sit here and be ideas people.
Yeah.
And think through things and come up with, you know, really effective ideas. But the difference is just picking it up and executing on it.
Well, and that's like the thing that
then like Bruce Springsteen had to pick up a guitar for the first time at some point. But he just continued to work towards whatever, like he didn't even continue. I don't think he worked towards anything.
Yeah.
He just continued to do it.
But, you know, and again, I am like, I obviously can't sit down with Bruce and be like, you know, were there moments where you were, you know, you thought to yourself, you know what, my vocals were fine. I just want to be done and go home. Like, I know they're not perfect and we could make them better and I'm capable of it, but it's good enough. That, like, those are some things when I'm working on something where I ask myself, like, oh, I could do it this way, but that's a little bit more work. That's more time consuming. I want to get this out now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sort of not the long view, not the discipline, not the mastery of the craft. It's, you know, sometimes I just let those, when I'm actually trying to execute something, like I'm going to write an article or I'm going to make a video or I'm going to build this shelf, you know, that I'm sort of like, you know, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And again, just wondering, and there's no doubt Bruce and Stephen look at their work and they see flaws predominantly, right? I could have done this, we could have done that. Stephen, especially because he's reliant on a collaboration. Obviously, Bruce is reliant on a collaboration as well with the band and all that. But ultimately, if Bruce wants like an extra couple hours in the studio, like it's going to happen. You know, we all see the flaws in our work, but I just wonder how much, if you got them into a room and talked to them, like, Stephen, was there a day where you're like thinking about the blocking of a scene and the camera movement, and you're just like, you know what, this would be really cool to do. This would be amazing, but it's just too much work. I'm just not going to do it. Obviously there's limitations, like, I want to do this, but the budget, the thing, like I can't, like we already did this, like there's compromises all the time. But I just always am wondering to myself, the proportion of compromises in my execution versus the proportion in theirs.
I wonder if the idea of compromise is a little different though between the two, because you're compromising on certain things in like a hypothetical sense. Whereas if Steven's blocking, like he's already trapped himself within the limitations or the parameters of the shooting schedule, the actors,
space,
the budget,
all of that.
And your compromises are more they're on the other side of that, right? Yeah. So you're thinking, okay, jump over the studio schedule. Well, then I would have to compromise this, this, and this.
Yeah. Whereas
he's already forced into action. There's got to be a result.
Yep.
You're either going with A, B, or C as the outcome. And so he might have to compromise, and there might still be a compromise, but one way or another, that scene has to be shot by the end of the day.
Right.
Whereas it's easier to sit on, our end of it and be like, well, what if we're in this place and we have, like, the blocking's there and we're going to have to, and then it's just not going to be perfect. Like, I think that's an easier thing to do from the outside. And when you're just in the flow and, it's like 6 hours until wrap, like, and we've both experienced this, when you're on set, there's no room to mess around. And even some of, like, you can't sit at a table and think through where that's going to take you.
Yeah.
But when you're there, you might be presented with something that is the perfect solution that you could have sat and thought through for 20 years and you would have never came up with. So I think there's just, again, with that line of thinking and doing, like, there's something to action where typically I think more optimal outcomes come from action than from thought or from meditation, premeditation.
Yeah.
So, is the secret to getting getting better or not getting hate. See, I try to break outside of that framework whenever I can, because I don't
pursuing
think it's
mastery or something.
But even that's like there's something to pursue. It's just doing something over, like you know, trying to. Yeah, it's like define what your definition of personal greatness is, or whatever. If we want to use those terms, and then seek after that, and be okay if that looks completely different than somebody else's. And
I think again, this goes, it comes full circle for what we've been talking about for the last year, art and commerce. I feel like my conflict in this, my pain, my whatever it is, ultimately I go, I'm fine with making my YouTube videos. I'm fine with overhauling my studio. I'm fine with going out and taking pictures of old satellite dishes the way that I am. I'm good with all of that.
Yeah.
But I don't have any fucking money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have a newer car that isn't rusty.
Yep.
And it's not because I give a shit about what other people think of me. I want these tools that let me just feel a little bit...
You just want security.
A little bit more stable. A little bit... Again, there's always going to be ups and downs. There's always going to be unforeseen expenses. There's always going to be something you want to improve, whether it's something about your house or this or that. I get all that.
Yeah.
I want a higher goddamn baseline.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like I can't enjoy doing the work that I'm fine with. I'm okay that I'm not Steven Spielberg. I'm okay that I'm not Alex Soth. I'm okay that I'm not Bruce Springsteen. I like making internet videos in my basement, and I like getting in my truck and taking pictures of old satellite dishes and maybe making a book out of it or whatever. I'm totally good. I don't feel like a failure in all that. I'm happy with all of it, but I'm just fucking tired
you just
of
want some stability.
Looking at my goddamn account and having no goddamn money.
Yeah. 100%.
Tired of it.
I'm
I'm tired of spending time flipping cameras. I don't want to flip cameras. I want to just make shit.
Yeah.
And that is what this is. And I go, is this an inescapable truth of my genetic makeup that, that connects back to my dad? And I can't talk to my dad and go, why did you do this? Why did you stop doing it?
Yeah.
Why was it important to you to get a stable job? Did having a pension and when I was probably in my pre-teens and teens, where they sort of stabilized their finances, even though they probably never felt truly comfortable. Was that better for you ultimately than to have what I have, which is a little bit less security, but I'm doing the work that I want to be doing.
Yeah.
Whereas,
well, and I think some of it, like with some of those people you named, like they just happen to reach a certain level of prestige and financial stability at a younger age. And there's certainly examples to the counter of that.
Sure.
But I mean, in the Tennessee Williams Museum, there was like one of his most famous quotes is, "You can be young with no money. You can't be old with no money."
Right.
It's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where it's like, you've got to, that won't change. Like that is how the system is the way the system is.
Yep.
You can talk about it. Like I generally think it's effective enough, and so you can sit and be like, oh, like I just, you can be upset at it, but yelling at the system is not going to do anything. Or you can break it down and figure out how to contend with it. And I think it's difficult because you figured ways to contend, like you contend with it every day through your main channel, through selling things. And I mean, how many people are listening to this that are in the same exact spot where they had something they wanted to pursue?
Right.
But it's like, well, I've got a family and I've got a house and I've got this and I've got that. And I have no other option than I got to pay the bills before I can do my art.
Yeah. It just,
And it's how do we find a better meeting point between those two conflicting ideas? Is that possible?
Right. And, I have no delusion that there's some magical state of nirvana that I can achieve in life where all of that melts away and you're just
Yeah.
problem free, happily creating and making internet videos in your basement and taking pictures of old satellite dishes and just like free
Yeah.
to just purely do that and have that clarity of focus on that. And obviously there are stuff in other areas, issues with friends, drama with your family.
I'd be curious to hear other people's experiences on this, because this is like a very universal thing, right?
Yeah.
'Cause I don't have enough money to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And how, some people overcome that. Some people like are currently in that kind of in that current. And where do you?
Well, and just this idea that you often we have to do something we don't want to do
Yeah.
to feel better financially, and doing something we love for a lot of us doesn't get us where we need to be financially. Like,
Yeah.
and this is not like, that's called reality, Matt. That's called like life. But it just
Well, and I think that's a bit of a conceit. Look, it sounds like I'm saying that from a very like privileged perspective, and I'm not trying to. But as soon as you accept something to be the only, framework of reality, that is the reality.
Yeah.
And so it's like you've, at least you're willing to fight. Like, you got to fight against that idea.
Yeah.
To stand any chance of,
right.
Changing that reality for yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if you just, fold under the weight of that, then there's going to be nothing that changes.
Right.
Unless you win the lottery. Yeah. Which is not going to happen.
Yeah. And
you might as well assume it's just not going to happen, period.
Right. And I think that's part of the the things that swirl around in a head like mine is part of you fantasizes about some kind of lottery moment because you're so tired of the conflict between wanting to do what you love, knowing that it's not sunshine and rainbows all the time.
Yeah.
That you're never just going to have like a problem-free life or a conflict-free life or a drama-free life or an insecurity-free life, but that you're I don't know, that you have some kind of baseline that I don't know. I don't think there is a baseline. Again, every time you hit a certain level, then there's a new batch of things you don't have.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of that too. I'm tired of knowing that, but I don't feel that.
Yeah.
And I have to sit here and think about these. And I'm a very optimistic person, and I don't know why I have this. I don't know, and this. I'm starting to ramble here. I apologize, but part of me is just like, why do you think about this stuff so often? And again, it's not like every day I'm sitting there going, I think you just sit there and go, I know what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I can't just do it all the time.
Yeah.
I have to do this other stuff that I kind of like or I don't like at all because I have to pay for this shit.
And I think it sucks to do this, but it's like,
everybody's like, yeah, it's called being an adult, you idiot.
Yeah, but I mean,
tough shit.
That's one way to look at it. I think, until the circumstance is not the circumstance, like you have to, like, if you feel like you have to work to, make a living, but you have this thing that you want to do, the wrong mindset to have is, in my thought, the wrong mindset to have is, well, I can't do that because I've got to do this. You've got to figure out a way to make time for that other thing.
Yeah.
And hopefully, eventually you can make more time for it, but make time for it and make that sacred.
Yeah.
Because who knows? That might be all you get.
Yeah.
But at least you get that.
Yeah.
Like at least you get an hour a day or an hour a week.
Yeah.
At least you get that.
Right.
So make that time for it and make that, sacred, continue that.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the other situation changes. But I think the trap that a lot of people fall into, and I've done this before too, is you just, well, I've got to do this because I got to make a living.
Yep.
And I'm just, oh, I hate this. Everything's, and then you don't make time for anything else.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to not do that. And then you almost get into this, well, once I reach this point, and again, it's just,
I know.
it's I'm putting the scene from Collateral at the beginning of
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Because it's just so perfect of what
and sadly, I still haven't seen Collateral.
You see, I was watching it last night after our phone
me?
call, and I was just like, God, this is literally. I mean, I almost think you should watch it when you get home.
I know, yeah.
You know, it's not like the greatest movie ever. It's a really good. It's a good movie. It's a really good approach to kind of some of these ideas.
Yeah,
it's an interesting approach to some of these ideas, and yeah, I mean, you got to make time until you can make you've only got one opportunity to do this whole thing, and you might as well take advantage of every opportunity you get to do the things that you care about.
And the best thing is ultimately, I am not just sitting in this ruined, tortured state of this is my lot in life, and I'm so unfortunate to be dealing with this. I'm down in my studio, toiling away at all these things every day. Yeah. And that is the fact that I even have enough money to not have to throw it all aside and, get a day job and all that yet. I'm incredibly fortunate and privileged to be in that situation. And I, certainly my wife helps with that as well, with having her career and all that helps with that. So I do get to go down and make an internet video, or go out and do some photography, or make a video for my photography channel, or sit here on a Sunday afternoon and make this podcast. Again, all of these things being the connection between what I think, how I feel, what I make, and then how I share it. And the desire to do that over and over again with this, the 2 YouTube channels, and then my personal work. I'm incredibly lucky that I even get that much time.
You get to do a lot of things.
I get to do a lot of things, but I sit there impatient and incredibly inspired and driven to want to do even more of it. Yeah. But the anchor around it all is just a feeling of sort of just those financial concerns. Yeah. And sort of the riding the razor's edge, at least what I think is the razor's edge of sort of financial safety. Yeah. During that.
I think you've got to be really careful, though, to not I don't know. I just think it's really easy. You use the metaphor of riding the razor. It's really easy to, fall off or get cut. Or,
absolutely, yeah.
You've got to be careful, because you can get into a very negative loop of thinking, and almost assure that you're not going to do anything that you want to do.
Right.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what this looks like in a month or 2 months, because you're going through a very
And I want to clarify too that when I talk about the money aspect, it's how much money my business has. My wife and I, we're not rich by any means. We're okay. We have money in savings. She makes a great salary.
You're okay. Yeah.
We're okay. We're okay. It's that I look at what my business generates for revenue, or how much money is in my business account, or how much money is coming in through a sponsorship or channel revenue or affiliate revenue or whatever. And when it's low and it's not where it needs to be to happily write a check for my business insurance, or to happily write a check for my accountant to do this, or to invest in new equipment or whatever. That feeling,
or invest in old equipment,
that feeling of frustration that things are so restricted and there's so much fear there. Like, well, one wrong decision or one bad
we talk
month,
about that. That's what I was getting at. Is we talk about that all the time of acting from a place of fear.
Right.
You're acting from a place. You're projecting fear onto everything.
Yeah.
And once you start that death spiral, it's very hard. And I'm not saying that you've started that death spiral.
No, my optimism counters that. I am so.
I know people that are in that death spiral.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I hate to, I don't think it's inescapable.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to get out of.
Yeah.
And again, that's just getting into the framework that you apply to things. And I think our, the way we approach conversations is we just talk about things, and then hopefully somebody else, one person out there, can listen and get some sort of positive insight out of the nonsense that we talk about for an hour every couple of weeks.
And again,
that's my advice to that person would just be like, don't get caught up in that. Like, maintaining an optimistic outlook is the most important thing. Yep.
And I think staying focused on what you're doing, obviously, you don't want to focus on your artwork so much that you don't pay your bills, or that you get foreclosed on, or your car gets repossessed or whatever. But hey, I'm making those internet videos, like I'm doing the thing. You want to have that part of your brain managing those things as best you can. And again, the point of sharing this is just literally something that I just stream of consciousness put out there because I had a strong emotion, a strong feeling while I was sitting there at my computer, and I just was like, okay, I'm just going to chase this down. The whole point of this is, in putting it on the internet, is not, Alex, be my therapist for this hour and make me feel better about all my problems, or sort of like tell me I'm wrong.
And you and I have talked about this stuff
all the time. I certainly want to work through this and have a bit of a therapy session, but I also want to for people who watch this and, like our conversations and all that, want to go, oh yeah, what Matt's talking about, I've experienced that too, or I feel that every day, or honestly go, give me a break, dude.
Yeah.
Quit your crying. You have any idea how good you've got it?
Absolutely.
Maybe that perspective is valuable to me to help me when these feelings or emotions do bubble up, that, you can give them a reality check.
I think both things can be true at the same time, though. It can be get over yourself.
Yeah.
But it's also not, every person should strive to get, have a little bit of progress.
Right.
Whatever that looks like to them.
Yeah. And just, you certainly might end with get over yourself, but when that raw feeling bubbles up and, and kind of takes over, that's the truth. Like this is happening. And I sit there and go, why? What's this connected to? Is this connected to my dad? Is it connected to my grandpa? What's the difference between what I'm doing and what others are doing? Is this ego? Is this, is this art versus commerce? And that's just a time, a timeless battle that we're all going to deal with the rest of our lives, no matter what. All of that.
We're at an hour 23.
Holy crap! That was an hour and 23 minutes.
Yeah. Really quick though,
this was an hour to read my notes.
So. We started all of this kind of like. There's the up, like there's a top, like you reach a point that's the greatest, and it's like a very vertical framework of the world. Yeah. There's the Mount Rushmore, and there's the peak, and there's
carved in stone.
The climbing the mountain.
They're the best.
What's a better metaphor?
I know, yeah.
And is it there is no perfect answer.
Well, I think that the flaw is there's a comparison. It's how do we all rank amongst each other?
And so how do we escape that? What's a better way for somebody who is maybe caught up in that to start to apply? What's a better lens? What's a better filter? Like, is it the waves are rough, the waves are calm?
Yeah, I don't know
I
don't know what it is that just lets us sort of go, are you happy with what you're making?
Yeah.
Like in the vacuum of what it is.
Why, like, do you love what is it giving you anything?
Right. Yeah.
Is it giving you any sort of, better understanding, internal fulfillment? Like,
yeah. Or just sort of, I made this thing and I've moved, I've progressed. You know, I might not be able to say exactly how, but I feel a little bit better. And I want to keep doing it. And I like this. I like this thing that I made. Maybe it's just that.
Yeah.
Do you like what you made?
I think,
by itself in a vacuum, not compared to this person's video or that person's movie or this person's photograph. Do you just like this thing?
Yeah. And not like, even pulling back from that, do you like it because you like it? Not because some other person likes it, because you're getting some external validation, because it's fitting some sort of mimetic desire that you have.
Or now I have this tool that can get me this thing that's for my ego.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a photograph that I think people will like, so I can be a famous photographer.
See, I wanna hone in on that, and maybe that's something that we need to, think about more, because I want to find that lens that's a little bit more effective, and at least we're a tiny voice in a world of voices, but I think it's a noble thing to really start to communicate in that way. Like, we've got to stop. If we think it is detrimental, we've got to stop communicating or existing in that framework.
Yeah.
And I do think it's detrimental. I think the whole, like, greatest thing is just very...
Well, not even the greatest, just like Bruce Springsteen is thinking about making great work. Am I? Now you start comparing yourself immediately.
Yeah, point of comparison.
Yeah.
But
so, like,
I think the point of comparison, though, is because it's like you're stacking Bruce Springsteen up higher than you are.
Well,
it's like, I've got to climb to get up there.
Yeah.
What does his greatness look like so I can go towards that greatness? And it's preventing a large group of people from achieving anything at all.
Right.
See, but there I go again.
I know. Yeah.
It's difficult, and I want to make an active effort to kind of remove the way we talk about these things. Remove that from the way we talk about these things.
Yeah. And I think, again, too, just like art and commerce.
Please give input. Like, if anybody's listening this far and, you're kind of on par with the conversation here, what have you, like, have you found something that's more applicable or...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is that makes me go, oh, Bruce said that, like, I just wanted to make great music. Like, do I think about that with what I'm doing? I kind of cut corners, or maybe I phoned it in, or maybe I didn't do that for, oh no, you start catastrophizing the difference between you and someone else, instead of just going, I'm different. I'm going to make this stuff. Yeah. I like it. That's it.
Yeah. If everybody just made stuff to that metric, I think there'd be a lot better work in the world. But anyways, we don't want another longest episode. So.
I know. Thanks for letting me share my thing.
That was good.
Thanks.
I enjoyed it. You gotta write those out. You gotta see. This is what I'm talking about.
I know. This is the type.
My response to it, like, it's something we've talked about before, but this is why I want to start writing my thoughts out more.
Oh yeah.
Because for the past year, I think because of this podcast, I've almost confused dialogue with actual, dissection and analytical thinking.
Yeah.
So it's easy to talk and to, take a little floating thought from here and a floating thought from here and here and here and trying to connect these things. But that's the surface. That's the first level. That's the first layer. And I need to go and kind of put stuff together a little more cohesively, coherently.
This is what happens in my brain all the time. Like, I'm doing this in my mind a lot.
Yeah. But I take shortcuts in my head that I can't take on paper.
Writing,
I think.
I think I went further
Yeah.
because I started writing
100%.
than if I just sat there thinking.
I think that's
It pulled
one of the
me-
reasons why
yeah.
writing is so essential.
Yeah. And so
Well, cool.
thanks for
pod.
making me buy typewriters, because now I'll do all this, which is what I used to do. I had a typewriter in my room, and I used to journal and all that stuff.
I'm going to play Matt, the scene from Collateral now.
Please. Bye.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the sunrise.